Good morning. Hope you are all well, lovely people, and have had a good weekend with lots of rest and self-care and are feeling good about the start to a new week. I wanted to talk to you about the very first boundary that I put in place when things were difficult with my parents. So mine and my parents' relationship started to break down when I was about 11 years old. My mum had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and I had been diagnosed with epilepsy around the same age. But everything had become very much about mum. Mum had become quite angry and bitter. Dad became very passive and didn't really sort of stand up for himself at any point, or me for that matter. And it became all about how mum was feeling and mum's anger and all of that kind of thing. So I wasn't listened to. It wasn't important for me to be part of any sort of discussion when there was a problem. It was all blame, 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 go to your room kind of attitude and what have you. And that continued. So I was very confused. I'd gone from spending quite a lot of time with my parents and feeling like we were a little gang, the three of us, to feeling very alone, feeling very much on the outside. And a lot of my teenage years were spent being very confused by this. I would rarely ever get an apology from my mum for anything, but would always be expected to, because for whatever reason it was always my doing, my fault, my issue, etc. So that was really hard, and I went into my 20s still being a complete people pleaser and really, really struggling. Things were a lot better by then, to be fair, with my mum. She'd had a hysterectomy, which had massively helped with the anger side of things, but she could still go off on one at any given moment. And just after I got engaged to my first husband, I wanted to go over and chat through plans for the wedding, and went over for a cuppa. But as soon as we started talking about anything wedding related, she would try and change the subject. And then when I sort of not confronted her, but just sort of asked her, why do you not want to talk about the wedding and what have you? She said that she was feeling tired, she was feeling poorly and didn't want to discuss it. And I said, but I'm just being excited with you. I just, wanted to chat to my mum about my wedding plans and what have you. And she went completely and utterly mental. And that was the day that I put the first boundary in place. That was the day that I found myself very calmly saying, I will not tolerate this behaviour. I will not tolerate the anger that is being shoved at me with absolutely no reason. It was so disproportionate to what was happening. It was unreal. So I said no more. That was the day that I said, that's enough now. And so I left. I had never, ever, ever walked out during an argument with my parents. I'd quite often, when I was living at home, gone off for a walk after something had happened just to clear my head, press the reset button and have a fucking good cry, quite frankly. But had never, ever walked out partway through being shouted at, being yelled at and what have you, and thought, do you know what? So at this point I would have been, so we got married in 2003, so I'd have been 25. And felt at 25 that was too old for my parents to still shout at me like I was really, really young. And so I was very clear about that boundary, very clear that I wouldn't tolerate it. But my parents really didn't get it. They really didn't get it at first. And my dad then phoned to try and talk to me and started shouting. And I just said to him, Dad, just going to be really clear here. If you shout at me, I'm going to put the phone down. If you shout at me when I'm at your house, I'm going to leave. If you shout at me when you're at my house, I'm going to ask you to leave. I will not do this anymore. And that was the first step for us to making things a lot better. So Dad then started shouting at me. I cut the call off. I would never have dared to do that before then. But for me, they'd really crossed a line at this bit. It'd been going on for way too long. And also I think I'd been validated by my first husband that it was bonkers as well, because first of all, when I told him what my relationship with my parents was like, he didn't really believe me. But then when obviously he saw it kept happening, he was like, oh, actually, this is a bit weird. So he was the one essentially to sort of say, this isn't normal. It's not right. You don't need to tolerate this. And it took me probably about another 6 to 8 months after that for me to sort of put it in place. But initially, I would have thought that if I'd behaved like that to my parents, they would have cut me off or all of this sort of thing. But actually what happened, they started to respect me a little bit more, and that was a big game changer for us. And things are a lot better in our relationship, and there's more that we've done. So why don't you come and hear about more that you can do about your relationship with your toxic parents? I'll be running a course on Monday the 1st of November at 6 o'clock on Zoom, so your location doesn't matter at all, and we'll be covering things about your toxic relationship with your parents in your childhood, the impact this has had on your adulthood, but also we'll be talking about how to cope with a parent, because not everybody wants to cut a family member out of their lives who is toxic. Some people don't feel that way about it. So why don't you come along and have a listen to some ideas and some strategies, things I've put in place and things that you can do to explore a little bit more the relationship with your toxic parents. I would absolutely love to have you there. So Monday, 6th of November, message me if you're interested. It'll be at 6 o'clock in the evening, so hopefully you'll be home from work. And if you sign up but can't watch it live, there will be a recorded replay for you to watch through as well. So let me know what you think, and tell me a little bit more about your toxic parents. You can either comment, you can put something into the feed, you can post yourself, but I would love to welcome you there. So do let me know. If you've just joined me, do watch this back on replay. Obviously it's not many minutes long, and hopefully you will A, resonate, and B, be able to take something from that. So lots of love to you guys. I'll see you for another structured live, which will be again about toxic parents on Thursday, and look out for any impromptu lives that I might do during the week as well. Take care and lots of love.